go away on holiday to Britain for a couple of weeks. I go to the southern states for some speeches, and someone gets into this chair, and he does annoyingly well. What you want is the person who sits in for you. You want them to try hard but fail miserably. But Doyle keeps saying, "Oh, he's very good." I hate you.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good, good.
Do you enjoy hosting, by the way?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is.
It's a lot of fun.
Good, good. We'll move on. Now, you might as well ask, I suppose, the new Premier, the new Liberal Premier of Ontario, do you enjoy being Supreme Leader? Because the gas-fired power plant in Oakville, which was the stuff of so much politics, the bill keeps going up and up and up. I mean, it started at about, what, $40 million, if that. Now we've been told today, is it $310 million?
Yeah, the original estimate that the Liberal government gave us, and the Liberal Party, and I think you're right to say politics, because that's what played in here, right? This was a Liberal government looking to get re-elected. They knew that they were in a minority setting. They wanted to make sure that they had every seat that they possibly could have, and they spent money. They spent our money in order to make sure that those seats were saved. They said it was going to be $40 million to cancel that plant in Oakville, just west of Toronto. The price tag today, according to the guy who runs the Ontario Power Authority, $310 million. You couple that with the seat in Mississauga that they saved. They canceled a plant there too. Now you look at a price tag of $585 million when you total it all together of wasted taxpayer dollars, and a government who doesn't feel they're sorry or accountable.
So more than $500 million.
That's right.
And this is the day, of course, we pay our taxes. So the Liberal Party could hold on, and they did hold on, to a couple of seats that were essential in forming a government. Can you imagine if Mike Harris, do people still remember Mike Harris, but if Mike Harris had done this? Good Lord. I mean, there'd be massive demonstrations throughout the province.
Well, and it's not even good policy that we're talking about here. It isn't that they just gave in to local residents that said they didn't want, and there were local residents that said they didn't want these kind of things in their backyard. They held off until it was politically feasible for them. That's the important thing. We're not talking about Mike Harris, who might have made a bad decision while in government. We're talking on the election trail, and I think that we've got to look at things in the future, not only, getting this Liberal government out and holding them accountable on the campaign trail, but why should they be able to do this during an election period? Why should they be able to use taxpayer dollars basically for their own propaganda, for their own seat-saving measures during the election? There should be a moratorium on that kind of spending right across the board when an election's being called.
Well, I agree, but you say get them out of office. Kathleen Wynne is now as popular as Tim Hudak. He's not that popular. They're pretty much neck and neck. And you have an NDP that's far more frightened of a Tory government than a Liberal one. So I suspect the Liberals will probably hold on to power.
Well, I hope not. I mean, the latest Ipsos Reid poll said that the NDP would probably win a minority government. I think you've got to put it back to the people. If the people are, in my mind, dumb enough to put this government back into office after all the scandal, this isn't their first kick at the scandal can. They've had e-health, they've had the Orange Air Ambulance scandal, they've had the power plants now. If people aren't frustrated by this kind of thing, and they want to put this government back in, well, you and I should probably pack our bags and head out to Alberta or somewhere else, because this province is going to hell in a handbasket. You mentioned the NDP, though. How can the NDP, even if they're given everything that they want, every single part of the demands that they've made, how can they look themselves in the mirror and say, this is a good idea to prop this government up once again?
It is fascinating that the NDP are very happy that there's going to be a 10 to 50% cut in auto insurance. So in Ontario, you'll save some money. But I think a
couple $100.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to work out now. I pay for the two cars about just over $3,000 a year, I think. So it's nice and all that, but more than $500 million. We have to pay that money eventually, so the Liberals can win a couple of seats. And the NDP is meant to be the party of principle. OK, we're not so good at playing the great political game, but we really care about people. That's absolute crap.
Well, of course. I mean, this is the fundamental, issue right here is the idea of this government being held accountable, keeping them in check. If you really care about the people, if you are the NDP, you're Andrea Horwath, the leader of the NDP, you're sitting and having that conversation in the back room somewhere saying, listen, as much as we like the idea of lower auto insurance, as much as we like some of the social programs that they might be putting in place, we can't support corruption, we can't support scandal, and we can't support a government that spent over $500 million.
You use the word corruption. You can stand by that?
I believe in the past when we talk about some of the other scandals that we've looked at, and certainly I think there's got to be a full investigation into who was calling the shots in the back rooms, because if it wasn't politicians, Michael, if it wasn't the elected representatives, then we've got a serious issue on our hands. And I've heard stories, and again, they'll have to be substantiated by authorities, that there were backroom people making these calls. It wasn't elected politicians doing this.
Let's read this line, because I think it's so clinical. Ontario Power Authority CEO Colin Anderson told a committee Tuesday today that they have revised the cost of the Oakville cancellation to $310 million from $40 million. Now, just hold on one moment. From 70 That's a big increase, you know, maybe another 10, from 40 to 310. Anyone who knows about accounting understands that this means everything they had been told was dishonest.
Yeah. And he made another admission today, which I found very interesting. And you're right, it was dishonest. And the fact that this guy still has a job and can stand by those numbers, if this was the private sector and somebody said, well, we're $270 million over budget, you'd be canned. There would be a lot of people losing their jobs. But the other point that he made today, and it was a very interesting one, he said everybody knew. Everybody knew. That's politicians included, people from the Ontario Power Authority. They all had a good idea that this was going on, and everybody still came out, the Liberals included, Kathleen Wynne, the Premier included, sticking by that $40 million number.
I wonder how much traction it will have. I just wonder if people have become so cynical now that they assume. Yeah. I mean, this was what happened, for example, in Australian politics, and Irish politics is similar. You assume things are going on. And when they're not, you're surprised. Canada was better than that. Canada, there was an assumption that politicians, they may have trimmed a bit, but they generally told the truth and they weren't corrupt. I think we've lost that now. Well,
and we've lost it in the sense that I don't think any other discussion can be made about raising taxes. I know Kathleen Wynne's talked about raising, tolls and revenue generators to pay for things like transit. She can't have an honest discussion because this power plant issue has now become a roadblock. It has become a political roadblock to any of those other conversations, any of those other discussions now. She can't ask the taxpayer for any more money because the taxpayer said, you've got $585 million of our money you've already wasted. So I think that in order to get rid of that roadblock, she's got to put it back to the people and say, if you have confidence in me, vote me back in.
Well, I hope so, because the game she plays, and it's a fairly clever one, is to say that was of the past. Sure. She hasn't actually said sorry. She's maybe hinted at the possibility of maybe a shadow of a ghost of an apology, but that's not there. But she said, it's time to move on and deal with the real issues. Kathleen, this is the real issue. Corruption and lies, it's a real issue. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.